Hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about controlling what you can control. So no matter what situation you're in or whatever the obstacle is in front of you right now, you definitely have two choices, right? You can control the obstacle if you can, or you can control your response to that situation or that obstacle. Some things are definitely completely and totally out of your control, and the only thing that you can control is really how you respond to that obstacle or to that situation. We can either take a deep breath, wait, and then think and take appropriate action, or we can go off the deep end, act super crazy. We can dig ourselves deeper into a hole and just completely lose control, right? So the whole idea is if we can't control the situation, we want to control what our responses are to the situation. Many times in life, we find ourselves in obstacles, in different problems or situations that we feel like that we have zero control over, and that even though everything that we try, it fails, and it fails miserably. And now, what is really failing miserably? Is it what you're trying to do, or is it how you're controlling your response to that situation that's making you feel like you're failing miserably? For some reason I can't talk today. It's probably because I had some hot pot for lunch and I'm in a hot pot coma right now. So some of you may or may not know that I actually lived in China for about 9 years of my life. So in 2004 to about 2013, I was actually living overseas in China. And in my first year living there, we took this backpacking trip from Beijing, where I was living, and we went through like South China into West China. We did a bunch of village hopping. We did all this really cool stuff. And we were trying to get to this one city. I don't even remember the name now because it was so long ago. It was Kunming, China is where we were trying to get to. So we were trying to do a bunch of like village hopping basically. So we would go from one village to another village to another village. And we had been village hopping for almost a week. And when you're village hopping in China, especially through like the southern parts of China, it tends to the further you get away from a city or civilization, basically, the less there is. So by about a week, we were tired, we were hungry, we were thirsty, and there was 3 other people with me. There was Loretta, who was an American-born Chinese person, and we have Paul. Paul is Canadian. Paul was like 6'2". Paul was had brown hair, white skin. And then we had Fayez. And Fayez was a Indian, but he was born and raised in Kenya. His family had come over from India back when the British were still controlling Kenya and India as well to build the railroad. So Fayez was Indian Kenyan, but he also lived in Iowa for a long time, and he went to a school called Maharishi University of Management. Whole nother story for another time. So we were deciding, okay, we need to get to some place that has like real food, so that way we don't starve to death, and we need a shower, and we just want some civilization. And so we were in this little village, and we were trying to get to this one city. Now our goal destination was Kunming, China, and it was way far away still, so we weren't even looking at there. We were looking for another good-sized city, and honestly, I can't remember the name of the city was right now. But we were at this little town, this little bus station, and we asked this person, okay, how do we get from point A to point B? They said, okay, you can take a bus from here, go to this city called Tongdao, China in the north, and then in Tongdao, China, you take another bus and go west. And we were like, cool, we got this. So we get on this bus, and we were on this bus for about 6 hours. Now, we were the only non-Chinese people on this bus. We were the probably most obvious looking people in the entire world on this one bus. We had passed 3 military checkpoints. There was no way that nobody would know that we were on this particular bus. Now you might be thinking, why are you bringing this up so many times? This is going to play into my story here in just a minute, so just bear with me, all right? So we arrive in Tongdao, China finally, and it's kind of late in the evening, and we're deciding, okay, because it's been 6 hours, we didn't stop anywhere, we were hungry still, we only had some snacks with us on the bus. It was like some sunflower seeds and some beef jerky and some water and some Coke and everything. So our whole objective was, do we do we actually get off the bus or leave the bus stop, walk down the street, get some food, come back and try to catch the next bus to our next destination? Or do we, take the risk, maybe miss a bus, get a really good meal, and spend the night in Tongdao? So we decided to just go ahead and go and get some food really quick. If we get back or not, we'll be okay. We'll just spend the night. So we started walking down the street from the bus station, and it was the weirdest thing happened. It seemed like everybody in this entire town of Tongdao, China, was coming out to look at us. Like, we were kind of used to it in the area of Beijing that we lived in, like people not really getting an opportunity to see non-Chinese people, besides like in movies and TV shows. But this was different than normal. This was, I don't know how to explain it. It's more like a, oh my gosh, like what are you doing here kind of stare. So we were walking through the town, and we're walking down the street, and we finally get to this restaurant, and we go in, and we were trying to order our food, and the waiter, who happened to be an English student in a city near Beijing called Tianjin, he looks at us, and he kind of stops, and he stares at us, and he says, "You're not supposed to be here." And we were thinking to ourselves, what do you mean we're not supposed to be here in this restaurant, or what's going on? So even though he was an English student, his English ability wasn't that great. Luckily, Loretta, who was an American-born Taiwanese person who grew up in New York City and everything, she spoke fluent Mandarin. So they started talking to each other, and then all of a sudden she stops. And she's just laughing hysterically. We're like, "Loretta, what is going on? What is so funny?" And she looks at us and she says very seriously, "He thinks that we might be international spies." Yeah, exactly what we thought. And we're thinking to ourselves, okay, we haven't shaved in a week. We haven't eaten in a long time. We don't really know what's going on. Why would anybody think that we're international spies? Look at us, right? We are definitely, if we were international spies, we would be the worst international spies in the history of ever. So, and then she says to us again, because they were talking again, she says to us, "And they've said they've called the police." Now, this is where we have to remember about controlling our responses to an obstacle, right? Because we were just told that the police were called on us. We were just sitting in this restaurant trying to order food. We weren't doing anything bad or against the law. We were literally in a restaurant ordering food, drinking some Chinese beer, and trying to be on our way to the next city to get to our final destination. And he's also said that they've called his sister, who is an English teacher, to help translate. So we were sitting in this restaurant and we're waiting and we're getting some food. We're trying to eat slowly and everything. And finally the local highest police person in that town, I guess it would be like the equivalent of a police chief for us for a city. But this dude's like the big guy, right? He's the head of everything. And he comes in and he starts interrogating our friend Loretta right there in front of us, and he's not happy that we are in his town. So he starts asking her like questions like, how did you get here? And she's like, on a bus, because that's like the only way to get there. Who sold you the ticket? Well, this lady in this other town. And he's like, you're not supposed to be here without government permission. And we're all thinking, wait, we're not supposed to be in this town without government permission. We had never heard of this before. I mean, yeah, granted that we had only been in China for a little bit over a year, but we had never ever heard of this before. So he takes our passports from us, he takes our friend, and they go to the police station. He tells myself, Paul, and Fayez, you cannot leave this restaurant. You have to stay here. You can't leave until I come back. Like, he's literally ordering us to stay in this restaurant. And if we leave, we could possibly be arrested, I suppose, by the Chinese police. So about 20 minutes go by, maybe 30 minutes, I don't remember exactly, because this is like a really long time ago now. I mean, it was 2005-ish. So he finally brings her back with our passports, thank God. She wasn't tortured in any way, shape, or form, just interrogated a tiny little bit. So He's like, okay, you have to leave. You cannot be in this town. You don't have permission to be here. You need to get out now. So we got to finish our food, which was actually really good. The sister finally showed up, who was the waiter's sister, and she's telling us that this is a very special town in China. They don't want like a lot of foreign influence in this town. Even as we noticed when we were leaving. As we were leaving the restaurant, by the way, he was taking us to a bus station where we had to get on a bus to go to a different place that wasn't that town. So he lines us up single file, and he literally parades us through this town. So we finally get to the bus stop, and people were coming out like of all these buildings and restaurants and work or whatever, and acting like we were superstars or something. It was the craziest thing I've ever experienced when I was living there. So we come to find out that, as we were walking down the street, we don't see normal things like we would in Beijing. Like we would see KFC in Beijing, for example. There was no Kentucky Fried Chicken in this town. No shoe stores that sell Nike or Coke or Pepsi or all these other American things. They were all the Chinese equivalents to it. Excuse me. So finally we get to the bus station after he had paraded us through this town, and the sister, the translator, the waiter's sister, had told us that this is a very special town, that the government didn't want a lot of foreign influence in. And all kinds of other things that were going on. So again, we weren't exactly sure what was going on. We just know we had to be on a bus and get out of that town. So we're at the bus station, and then finally we got word that the bus that we were supposed to be on to take us to a different town was in an accident. So the police chief actually got a van, like a police van and a bunch of police cars, and he literally escorted us out of this town about 6 hours to another location, to another town east of where we wanted to go. We were trying to go west. He brought us east, completely wrong direction. Anyway, while we're in this car, in this van with this police escort for 6 hours, we were just thinking, what can we do to pass the time? How do we not freak out? Because what if they're taking us someplace else to harvest our organs? Yeah, that thought crossed our mind. So instead, we were singing, we were having a good time, we were controlling our responses to this very stressful situation. So we finally get to this other city, then we finally make a few other hops away from Tongdao, China, and figure out where we were. We finally got to the spot where they had internet cafes, so we were really curious, why couldn't we be in this town? Why was it such a huge deal that we were in this town without government permission? So we finally found out that the town that we are in is actually home to China's largest nuclear missile base. That's a secret, and it was a secret to all the people who live there. And then I knew a lot of Chinese people from that province, and they all said they've never heard of that town or anything like that. So, moral of the story is, we had to control our responses to the situation that we were in, because it was a very, very stressful situation, right? If we would have not controlled our responses to this situation, it could have turned from something that was okay and not too bad to something really, really horrible, really, really quick. And a lot of people ask me, a lot of people that I work with, not just at my job, but also my side hustle, they ask me, what can they do to help control their responses, or what can they do, in situations that are stressful? And one of the things I always like to tell people and how they can work with me personally is to learn about their personality style and how their personality responds to different stressors or different obstacles that might come through. One of the things I like to do is the DISC personality assessment. And with the DISC personality assessment, you can determine to find out if you're a D, I, S, or a C. If you're a dominant, influencer, steady, or compliant. And each different personality type, or even groups of personality types, will have, different ways that they respond to stress, different ways that they communicate, even different fears. And once you know what those are, you can better control them. Sorry for a lot of drinking water today, everybody. I've got a bit of a cold, I think, and so I got to stay hydrated. So, that's one of the things, right, is learning about your personality style and how your personality responds to different things. Also with coaching, one-on-one sessions, there are a lot of opportunities out there that we can do to help you to control your responses to obstacles, especially obstacles that are considered negatives. Now, there is a book that I really like and I really enjoy. It's by this guy named Ryan Holiday. It's called The Obstacle is the Way. And that's why I've been keep saying obstacles, situations, and obstacles, because anything that is negative or we perceive to be negative could be considered an obstacle, right? So in that book, Ryan Holiday says, the obstacle is the path. Never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition. So what holds you back when it comes to overcoming or achieving your goals or getting around those obstacles or making sure that you are controlling your responses to negative situations or to obstacles? What is holding you back from growth? What is holding you back or preventing you from moving forward? Is it a physical thing? Is it the mental? Is it a lack of support? Is it self-goal? Or is it false goals or self-doubt? Overcoming obstacles is a discipline of 3 critical steps. It begins with how we look at specific problems, our attitude and our approach. Then the energy and creativity with which we actively break them down and turn them into opportunities. Finally, the cultivation and maintenance of an inner of your inner self will allow us to handle defeat and difficulty. So basically, it's 3 different disciplines. It's perception, action, and will that we need to overcome any obstacle and turn that obstacle into the path or into the way. Perception is how we see problems. It's how we see ourselves. Remember, perception, maybe you've heard this before, maybe you haven't, but perception is reality. What we believe to be true will be true. What others see in us and they believe true will be true in their mind. So that is what perception is. Action, of course, is the goals that you set and the steps that you take to achieve what you want to achieve. And finally, the will. Are you willing to make changes in your life? Do you have the want? Do you have the desire to do it? Perception, of course, is a starting point, though. Without perception, without perceiving that every obstacle is not an issue, but every obstacle is the way. Perception is the starting point. As John Maxwell says in his book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, you must know yourself to grow yourself. One of the greatest ways to know yourself is through a personality assessment, such as the DISC assessment, or the Myers-Briggs, or the DOPE test, or the Strengths Finders. I personally, I've done a lot of them. I've done Myers-Briggs, I've done Strengths Finders, I've done the DOPE test. Let me clarify that. I've done the DOPE test. It's DOPE, Dove, Owl, Peacock, Eagle. Know what you're thinking? It's not it. All right, so I've taken the DISC assessment. I'm actually a certified DISC consultant and trainer. However, I've done a lot of these personality assessments, and for myself, I find that the DISC is easiest to use, it's the easiest to read, it's a lot more layman's terms and a lot more actionable than some of these other ones out there. So you can gain a deeper insight into what motivates you, what drives you, what your greatest fears are, how you communicate. And, knowing yourself is especially crucial when we need to control our emotions. Again, let's go back to the book again. The Obstacle is the Way. And Ryan Holiday says when people panic, they make mistakes. They override systems. They disregard procedures, ignore rules. They deviate from the plan. They become unresponsive and stop thinking clearly. They just react not to what they need to react to, but to the survival hormones that are coursing through their veins. So what is the solution? Well, there are several different solutions. First is to getting to know yourself as much as possible. Know how you respond to stress and triggers and crisis. Then work on improving your response to that crisis. Finally, understand that the obstacle really is the way. Once you become solution-focused instead of problem-focused, your entire outlook is going to change. Once you understand what drives you and motivates you, and once you change that mindset, once you flip it from obstacle to, I can use this to my advantage. This is how I control my reaction to that situation. This is what I need to do, and not be off the cuff first, but actually sit back, take a breath, relax, and then see the bigger picture. then you can change everything. All right, well, thank you all so much for listening today. If you'd like to learn more about yourself and are interested in taking the DISC assessment, you can look in the link below. I'll have a link for that. I'll have a link for the book, the John Maxwell's 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, and Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way, down in the description. You can also reach out to me on Facebook at Leadfluence LLC, or you can even comment down below. And don't forget to click the like, subscribe, and the bell icon for more notifications. Have a great day.